Okay, so on another topic, Matt, I know you had brought up a little bit earlier when we were talking, how you want to kind of discuss how I guess you can call it hood politics has been going on recently. There's been a lot of news as far as the situation with Big U
Oh,
down in California, the situation with the rapper down in Dallas who got killed at the car wash with his daughter, and just in terms of how things are going as far as what would be hood politics. So, I mean, can you kind of touch base on what we had discussed a little bit earlier?
yeah. One thing that's really happening is that the status quo is changing. So we all probably grew up in neighborhoods where you kind of had to follow some type of hood politics. Like, okay, don't mess with this person, blah, 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 blah. But there is a huge crackdown happening at the state and federal level around this stuff. So, for instance, people are very familiar with the RICO charges that the mob got. But people don't really understand is that this has been happening. Even Young Thug's case, that was a state RICO charge, right? So that was pretty much the black elite in Atlanta saying, "Hey, these people have been breaking in celebrities' homes, they scamming left and right. We about to crack down on this stuff." They were really sending a message, right? So really, this and it's really kind of like this combination between the hood politics, street stuff, and the hip hop community, the hip hop industry. They're cracking down on it. So recently, Big U was indicted. So if you're from California, Big U was a famous Rolling 60, Crip, and he was really tied a lot to Nipsey, right? Nipsey Hussle, the rapper. A lot of people claim there was a falling out between them, and I don't know, and so people, so there's a lot of stuff he's been linked to, but he's really known for the checking in culture. You come to California, you check in. There's actually I can't think of the rapper, but but it was always nefarious a little bit. So sometimes you would check in, but then they orchestrate you getting robbed anyway. This is all in the indictment. But he got an indictment. So a lot of times these people are on podcasts, No Jumper, these DJ Vlad, these podcasts, whatever, but they got RICO charges, federal cases. And what's happening is on the state level and the federal level, they're cracking down on things that were just normal. Obviously, these kind of so they talked about some of these things openly on different podcasts. And one thing you're starting to see is that a lot of this street stuff, the hip hop stuff, is getting hit with RICO charges, right? And they're attacking these kind of street level things that we grew up with that was just normal part of our communities with the same way they attack the mob. And I really feel like it's starting to become the death of the hood politics and and really cracking down on that. I think we're really starting to see it, and I just kind of wanted to see that had you all noticed that as well too, like, the culture kind of changing just due to, more, I think just because more like attention, more aggression going towards like I guess not just police, but federal, state charges or anything that you all notice around a change in those type of things. I don't know if anybody had noticed anything.
Yeah,
Well,
I definitely. You want to
no, go ahead, Leon. No.
Okay, I definitely have noticed a change in it. And a couple reasons is where I grew up, we had a thing that was stated as real G's moving silence. I know everybody thinks Lil Wayne that was something that was said in the West Coast 40 years ago. Real G's moving silence.
Mm-hmm.
And these days, you got people going on podcasts, you got people doing lives, and discussing these crimes that they're doing. And
Yeah,
everybody's wondering, well, who's snitching? I'm like, a good portion of you guys are snitching on yourself because you guys are looking for this attention. And I guess it's a social media thing where, everybody's so addicted to attention. But I think that has a good portion to do with it is that these people are talking about their crimes openly. Back in the day, there was, no snitching, even if you were snitching on yourself or, but these guys are snitching on themselves basically by going on these podcasts and discussing all the stuff they're doing. Another thing too is this whole check-in culture. I think it's a joke, man. Because like you said, you can check in with this person to say, "Oh, hey, I need to be protected when I'm down here," and then next thing you know, they rob you because they
yeah.
they got they got the drop on you. And then my question to them, for these people that are checking in when they're having all these rappers and stuff check in, why aren't you making Taylor Swift check in? Why aren't you making NSYNC check in? You know
Yeah.
why? Because the police are gonna come down on your ass and it's not gonna roll. We only do this with our people. And it pisses me
Yeah.
off that this happens. We only do this with our people. I've never heard of Taylor Swift having to hit up Big U when she goes to perform at SoFi Stadium. I've never heard of that.
Coachella. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of BS and garbage as far as how I see it. But ultimately, how I see it is, people are more out with what they're doing, And if you're gonna tell the police what you're doing in the public, you're doing half their job for them. And at that point, they just got to follow up and get the evidence, and then they'll come and get you. So there has been a shift in it. I think it's been a good portion of it is that social media has, have addicted people to attention, and they're discussing their crimes out openly. And then the second thing is, I just think that there's a disconnect between this younger generation as far as when I was a kid, how gangsters moved. They almost had, I guess you said, they operated with morality, where there were certain principles that you just didn't cross, no matter what. Things like, if I see you with your mom, I'm gonna give you a pass. If I see you with your kid, I'll give you a pass. But just like that situation down in Dallas with the rapper, they killed him with his daughter, who just turned 5 years old the day before, and it's just there's no rules to the game anymore. So it's just open season.
You know what? I tell you what, I'll even add to this. It's a gamification of crime. That's the way I see it. It's straight up gamification. You think about it. We used to play Grand Theft Auto. Like, I'm an OG, so I used to play the old version of Grand Theft Auto, where it was over the overhead. Remember the overhead?
Oh man, no, bro. No, bro.
That's my lane, bro. I used to be killing everybody on Grand Theft Auto with that. But but it's like a real thing to go spray some bullets and think you cool. You know what I'm saying? Because you do it on Xbox or you do it on your PlayStation, or you watch the show Power and you want to be like Ghost and you want to move like Ghost. And I just think it's a gamification of it. Like, people aren't really comprehending, like, if you go out and, unalive somebody, there's consequences to that. So I just feel like people just feel like these fake beefs and they're trying to create this East Coast, West Coast type vibes in like real life. I just don't think it ends well. We saw the East Coast, West Coast stuff. We saw what happened, how quickly things can escalate. And to your point, Leon, you got social media now. Like, things can escalate real fast, real quick with real consequences. So my thing is, like, we just need to stop glorifying these rappers. I got my beef with rappers too, but we need to stop glorifying this stuff, man. This crime and gamification of crime. And I know you guys know about this show because we used to talk about this show all the time. And we used to watch the show. It's called America's Most Wanted, or Cops, right? Or even Cops. Now, I was biased towards those shows. I always felt like they had Black people and Hispanics running through the alleys and stuff like that. I'm like, come on, man. I always had my biases, but I watched the show lately, and I'll be sending screenshots to y'all sometimes because I'll be seeing the show, and they be having like the hoodest guys, and they be very descriptive with it. They be like, yeah, it was a 5'8" black male with dreadlocks. He had Jordans on, and he goes by the name Grills on social media. You be like, wow, man, they really kind of like trying to like bring this anger and this angst amongst our people or whatever. So it's kind of like you just see it now. It's just blatant, but it's out there.
Fun fact. Just a quick fun fact. Cops is the reason that the word wife beater got attached to tank tops.
Really?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Basically, the reason why they call them wife beaters is because every time cops will shoot a show and they go do a domestic violence case and they bring the guy out the house who did the domestic violence, he was usually in a tank top. Wow. That's how I got the name. That's how I got the name wife beaters, was from the show Cops. Just a little fun fact.
No, wow. I never knew that, man. But what I was going to add is Dr. Claud Anderson, if anybody watches or listens to him, he talked about that. He talked about how the position of mainstream culture were hardened towards Black society. So, right, I think one thing that we're seeing, that people who grew up with this music, even suburban America, grew up with this music, are now prosecuting the the kids of that very music that they grew up listening to. So I guess my question for you all, are you all noticing that? You all seeing signs of that, where like the mainstream America, like they're positioning towards Black culture, specifically Black hip hop culture, right, is hardening? Do you notice that? Do you see it? I know you talked a little bit about ICE, and you talked a little bit about Ivory, you talked a little bit about America's Most Wanted, being more descriptive. Is there any other examples that you all see in the real world or in media or news outlets?
Yeah, I would say on social media, what I've noticed is like, you all seen this. I see it all the time, like the YouTube shorts, and they have the guy going into Apple and just snatching all the iPads and everything, just snatching everything, and then they do reactions on it, and they're very descriptive in their reactions, right? They and you know what they be saying sometimes, but they can't say it. But I think they be very descriptive, and they always say blue cities. Like this is what happens in blue cities. And you know what they mean when they say blue cities. So I think
Yeah.
it's more of a descriptive thing with influencers. I see influencers doing it and they pushing it out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would say in a sense it's I mean, social media is definitely has a big part to play in that. But just from this perspective of, I would say, oh shit, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. We edit that.
No, just keep going, man. So pretty much you were just saying, from your description, we talking about descriptive. I could pick up. I mean, one of the things I
Okay.
see you use the term you hear the term YNs a lot. To your
What
point,
that mean,
RB,
bro?
young ends. You know
Oh,
what
oh,
I'm
got
saying?
it, got it.
YN, you would hear descriptive terms like, hey, probably was somebody in some Jordans, like in the comments, or it's probably somebody who can't swim. Like they make the, probably somebody, they kind of make these kind of suggestions in the comments,
Yeah,
but
who was that guy that said that, Matt? I think you told me about the guy. Was it Charlie Kirk or whatever the guy he was talking about? Young black male aggression, and he was talking. You know what I'm talking about?
Mike, can't think of his name. Was it?
Mike
Yeah,
Wash. That's what his
Mike
name.
Wash.
Yeah, and I
Yeah,
wish we could pull up the tweet that he sent that he
I,
had,
I,
but
I'll
it's
pull.
very descriptive. It's very descriptive, and they're using like this intellectually dishonest conversation to say, "Oh, black males are more aggressive, so they're more
Yeah.
likely to kill people." And they're using that type of language now. So to Matt's point,
Well, do you feel like, I mean, at the end of the day, all that is stereotyping, and they're just adding on to something that a good portion of the society thinks, and I think they're just capitalizing on that at the end of the day. I hate to say this in a sense, but people don't look for facts anymore. They look for validation of what they already have as far as a preconceived notion. And when somebody's looking at a video, they're not going to look at it like, going back to your point of a
Yeah.
blue city. They're going to look at it from the standpoint of, oh, okay, yeah, I know all black people in this area are bad. This helps me validify. By this one person, even though there's 2 million other black people who
Hmm.
are law-abiding citizens in that city, we're going to attach what my preconceived notion is to this one person who's in the Apple store selling iPhones, and that's how every black person is. That's just unfortunate, but that's kind of how it is.
Yeah,
yeah,
and I'll say this to close it out, even with the Big U situation, just to get some more clarity. I mean, he had got contracts with the city to do gang prevention, right? I think over 5 years he got $2.3 million. So I think, so I think he was really deep into the city politics. And also I think they were also trying to redevelop parts of LA, right? Gentrify it and things like that. So I do believe that some of this is also about, hey, we can't gentrify this area and still have this type of energy that scare off investors and things like that. Um, but like I said, if this is a topic that you really like, you think about this, we'd love to hear your comment. We'd love to hear what you think about it. Obviously make sure you do the survey at blackagenda28.com. Once again, at blackagenda28.com. We'd love to hear your opinion. You can also check us out at unitedblackvoters.com. Take care, everybody.